In the darkest nights, we find our light. Battered souls, but we won't lose sight. Surviving together, never alone. Through every trial, we carry on. Surviving together, never alone. Through every trial, we carry on. Surviving together, we stand tall. United forever. Strength and courage will overcome. Oh, surviving together, victorious, and never alone. Hand in hand, we'll face the unknown.
We see you, we hear you, and we believe you. Hey everyone, how you doing tonight? It's Wednesday night. It's 6 o'clock here in Michigan. Welcome to Surviving Together, a safe space for trauma survivors to connect and build community on their healing journey, as well as providing trauma-related education for all. So far, here we have Crystal is here. Welcome, welcome. And Body Illusion. I'm so glad to see both of you. There is something that I do want to address first. And, really it's in the United States, it seems to be the cost of being different. And I don't get into politics here. It's something that we don't debate. However, I don't care which side you're on, murder is not the answer. For those of you who don't know, an ultra-conservative activist named Charlie Kirk, he was 31, he's a very young guy, very active in politics, huge supporter of Trump, was giving a speech at the University of Utah today where he was shot and killed. And it just saddens my heart because of the level of political violence that has been escalating on both sides. There's been violence against people who are more on the left and violence against people who are more on the right. And you would think that we would learn from history that this doesn't get us anywhere. Trying to take out, one person is not going to affect the movement. And in a lot of cases, it does the opposite. Uh, Body illusion, I 100% agree with you. I think it does make the divide even larger. And I think, the person who was killed can end up being viewed as like a martyr or, a blatant figurehead of the cause. And I don't understand it. And I think, and for any of us who have ever felt different on the fringe, whether it's because you're on the far right or because you're on the far left or because you are somebody with a disability or you're somebody who has, is transgendered or is non-binary or is of a uh, less populous in terms of numbers, religions. It There are so many of us that have a reason to feel other. And it just it hit me in the heart today, hearing that because it's just so unnecessary. Hey Indigo, how's it going? Oh, before I forget, you have to sign on as Indigo Twin in order for me to wrench your Indigo Twin, but as long as I at least have your Hallison name here, let me add you as a moderator. Okay, so your Hallison is a moderator. If I see you as Indigo Twin at some point, I will add that one. But if you comment again, you should light up in blue. So really, I mean, that's all I'm going to say about that. We're not going to get into politics or anything in regards to it. But I just, my heart goes out to his family. Um, no matter his political leanings, he was somebody's son, probably somebody's brother, and it really sickens me, the level of violence that people are dipping to in order to get whatever their point is across. So, Crystal Phoenix, hey, it's good to see you. Oh, Inigo, I'm sorry you're sick in bed. Charlie Kirk was a husband with two small girls. Yeah, that's he was only 31, so real young guy. Um, so thoughts and prayers to his family, regardless of what you think of his political leanings or, his activism, he was a human being. And it's just, sad that it's coming to this in the US. And I just really hope that we're not delving down into that. But um, so yeah, that's all I'll say about that. Any other news I have to update you guys on? Let's see. You all know that I have booked my tickets for the book launch for Vancouver. I did just find out we are at the Vancouver Hilton downtown. So as soon as I get the information on the block rate and like who I need to ask for and all that kind of stuff, I'll be booking my rooms. So I have from now until November 1st to raise the money for however much it's going to cost with the rooms. But now at least I know where we're going, and hopefully I'll get the block rate soon. I'll be able to get that locked in so that I know, kind of what my final little amount is for raising the rooms. Um, I raising the money for the lodging. I'll be footing the bill myself for my food, no worries with that, but I'm gonna try to fundraise at least the lodging for this. So we'll have that hopefully up and running soon and kind of know a little final amount that we'll have our last little push for. And then I'm off to save for trying to get to Salt Lake City for the trauma retreat. I had to replace my rotors and brake pads in the front of my car, which was my Salt Lake money. So unfortunately, that had to come first. That had to come first before the trauma retreat, which it is all right. I was supposed to be starting a new project today, so it was like a week and a half off of work, which sucks. I didn't get the job I was hoping for, which was going to be working with sexual assault survivors. I don't know why I asked. The information went through the agency and then on to council, and they chose from whoever. So I don't know why I didn't. I'm really actually really bummed about that one. But I should have some more work coming up tomorrow, so we're looking forward to that. So at least a little bit for I don't know how long, I don't know how much data they're loading, so we will see. But today we are going to be talking about betrayal trauma, but specifically in kids. I know we talked about betrayal trauma last week, and a lot of the information is similar between the betrayal trauma that adults feel versus what kids feel, but it's just trickier and it gets more complex when we're talking about kids. Now, betrayal trauma really is part and parcel. It is a component of CPTSD. So if you have CPTSD, have ever been diagnosed with it, you've got betrayal trauma layered within that. And just to remind everybody, in case you didn't watch last week's, betrayal trauma occurs when there is a connection between two people. Specifically, we're going to be talking about kids here. So usually it's between a parent and child, a caregiver and child, a close family member and child, someone that child trusts implicitly, and then the adult breaks that trust. They violate it in some way through betrayal, through deceit, through breaking promises, through some form of some form of deception. Sorry, I'm just looking at my notes. I can't have everything right here in front of me. And with kids, the complicated nature of it is mo- most often this is by a caregiver. And so this is somebody that they rely on for their livelihood, for their food, for their shelter, for their nurturing. And when that trust breaks, of course, you don't want to trust that person anymore, but you're still reliant on that person. And so, how does a child deal with this dichotomy, this disconnect of feelings? Well, first off, I just want to share with you, I'm going to share with you a few pages. And I do have the link to this particular talk in my description. And it's an excellent talk about betrayal trauma in general and also specifically in kids. And I absolutely love this doctor, Thomas, and I'm forgetting his last name right now, but he is fabulous. He has a whole series. He has tons and tons of videos out on a lot of different subjects. So if you're interested in anything trauma related, he's probably got a video out there. And a lot of them, honestly, are about like an hour long. So he goes in depth with this. These are lecture series that he's done. So let me share this on screen with you. I have to find my cursor. Yes, Crystal. Says when trust breaks as children, it's hard to trust for the rest of our lives. Absolutely. And it's something that is very difficult to rebuild, and it has to be done slowly. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't get help as kids to be able to deal with this betrayal trauma. So it is stuff that carries on into our adult lives. The effects of the betrayal trauma, the effects of the CPTSD, unfortunately, and that's where, education and being able to recognize that something's wrong is so critical so that we can catch this earlier and help people earlier in their lives so that they can start healing from these effects and don't carry it, all the way into adulthood into your, 20s, your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, right? I mean, there's a lot of people who are just starting to deal with things, and they're my age. So, what does betrayal trauma feel like, especially for a child? Well, it can feel like getting stabbed in the back or punched in the gut. It can be a real visceral feeling, literally, like your heart got ripped out and somebody stomped on it, like the air is taken out of your sails, like you're hit by a truck, like you've been a pawn in someone else's game, like someone died. Deep shock, confusion, rage. The child can feel like there's nobody there for them. They can feel abandoned and alone. And all of these feelings are extremely intense and extremely painful. And along with these feelings, additional feelings of guilt and shame, what did I do to cause this person to do this? Because again, it's so much easier for us to internalize it. And a lot of times as kids, they are made to feel like it's their fault. And that guilt and shame can carry with us for so long. But in addition to the emotional, there's also the visceral feelings. And this can manifest as stomach aches, headaches, um, all kinds of digestive issues, not just stomach aches, headaches, muscle aches, and if not dealt with, and this carries with you, this is where the chronic pain can come from when we're in our adult life. And did find something interesting that talked about how this manifests kind of at different stages as a child. So, in addition to the shame and guilt, there's anxiety, fear. You could feel numb. Um, Kids can have aggressive behaviors. They can have regressive behaviors, such as extensive clinginess, or they can revert to bedwetting when they've not been not been doing that. Older kids have a risk of sexualized behavior. And I found this breakdown, which was fairly interesting, which talked about how these effects can manifest at different stages. So, for instance, for infants and toddlers, it can manifest as excessive crying, feeding or sleep disruption, failure to thrive, which, if you don't know what that is, it's basically the child's going to appear listless. They may stop eating or not eating very much. They're not going to be sleeping. Just kind of, basically given up, and also extreme clinginess. In preschool age children, there can be regression. So this can be, again, back to bedwetting, to acting like they're a toddler in terms of the needs that they want met. They will also can also start reenacting whatever the abuse was that led to this betrayal trauma, increase in fear, and they can also develop speech problems because the young mind, that preschool age, 4, 5, our brains are still like sponges. From 0 to 5, our brains grow just exponentially every month. And so when there's trauma in their lives, It can affect some of their basic developmental skills. School age kids, we're talking about, um, elementary through, say, 6th, 7th grade. There can be classroom problems. Maybe they're not doing well in school, they're not focusing. They may have aggressive tendencies, they may be acting out. Um, Somatic complaints. So this is where we start getting into, stomach aches, body aches, the headaches, anything, physical problems. And it's tough because if providers don't suspect trauma, they look at the kid and they go, well, we've run all our tests. We can't find any reason why this is happening. And if they're not trauma informed and they're not asking those additional psychological questions, it can just be brushed off as, well, kids just trying to get attention, which I think doctors these days are much better informed than they were, but there's still gaps. School age kids can also have, anger management issues. They can be secretive. And this doesn't mean necessarily about keeping the secret about the trauma, but it can be, just being secretive about a lot of different things. And again, also academic decline. So, if a kid's been doing well in school and all of a sudden they're not, people need to pay attention. And here's the difficulty when you're talking about a caregiver relationship is the first people we're looking to notice these things are the people in the immediate family. And unfortunately, if it's somebody in your immediate family who is causing or caused the trauma, the others may be in denial. And so they're turning a blind eye. And so they're not connecting the dots between what's going on with this child and the reason why. When this happens, when betrayal trauma happens a little later on in life, so when we're talking about adolescence, they're at risk of running away, substance abuse, sexualized behavior, self injury, and suicide attempts. And so you can see as the child grows, if this trauma carries with them, the way it manifests can change with them as well. So the symptoms that you may experience if you were a child of if you were a victim of trauma when you were really young, let's say a preschool, as you age, the trauma effects may manifest slightly differently. And because of this, if people aren't trauma informed, if they don't understand that the same source can be responsible for these effects manifesting in all these different ways, as the child grows, they may be looking for something different each time something new comes up without realizing, no, this we're talking about the same root problem. Let me move on in here. Cut a few of these pages out because he really did a good job of speaking to them. So some of the ways that a child internally is going to react to betrayal trauma is one of them is feeling as if the people that are supposed to love them unconditionally don't, right? There are conditions upon the love. You've got to behave a certain way, you know, um, don't do this, do this. I did this, therefore I don't deserve all the love. Or these are the people you're supposed to be able to rely on completely to love you no matter what. And when that trust breaks, when you feel like you are loved conditionally, the stress that puts on the child, especially in some circumstances, never knowing, what exactly is expected of them, because sometimes that can change depending on the person inflicting the trauma. That can be extremely confusing, and you're walking on eggshells all the time. Additionally, kids kids in general, right, are almost pre-programmed to be helpful. We want to make our parents happy. We want to do what we're told for the most part. But especially when we're being told that our love is conditional, we will do everything possible to mold ourselves to do exactly the right thing to be able to get that positive attention. Thinking if I just change, if I'm just better, if I'm a good girl, then will all be okay. Other thing that can happen with kids is what they call cognitive dissonance. Basically, it's holding two different thoughts at the same time, and it's it's this thought of, I don't like you, I don't trust you because of what you did, but yet you're my mom or my dad and I love you, and you feed me and you shelter me, and therefore I need to be good. And so you have these two totally conflicting thoughts in your brain. And some kids will choose to focus on one or the other. Others will still try to balance them. One of the ways is staying busy, always doing something so that you're always focused on whatever task is right in front of you. So you don't have to think about this larger issue about what's going on. And that's one coping mechanism that kids will use. Kids can also minimize what is going on. It's not that bad. It is a coping mechanism. It's helpful to be able to survive by downplaying the severity of whatever it is. Also, by minimizing it, it gives you the hope of being able to overcome it, right? This isn't so bad. So if I'm just better, then this won't happen again. Mhm. And then, kind of the most severe way that kids can deal with betrayal trauma is to basically forget about it, right? It's too much for the brain to handle, and so you can dissociate from it. And they call it dissociative amnesia. And this is particularly common where kids are reliant upon the person for their survival, for their food, for their shelter. So, parent, grandparent, whoever's taking care of them on a daily basis, because it's just too much to think about. It's too much to deal with. And so the brain protects the child by locking it away somewhere. Now, it doesn't mean the trauma seeps out, right? The effects seep out in other ways. The stress is still there, but they just aren't thinking about what is going on in their head constantly. They don't have the thoughts there. So they're not thinking about the abuse, they're not thinking about the betrayal, about whatever happened to them. But the effects are still there. And that can get real tricky later on down the line. Say you're dealing with this as an adult and you're starting to try and heal. And so you're looking at your symptoms and you're opening that up. And as you're doing that, you don't have a basis for the root problem because your brain has just locked that away. Hang on, guys.
Where's the can opener?
Sorry about that kitchen emergency. All right. So, moving on, another way that kids deal with this is what's called betrayal blindness. Um, the brain kind of twists what you're seeing as a way of protecting yourself. So instead of forgetting about it completely and locking it away like, nothing's ever happened, they look at it and go, "Well, it's not really that much. It's not bad." And essentially, this is, denial of what's going on. So, this willful blindness, and it's a coping strategy. And it's because the kids still need this person to meet their daily needs. And so this can also warp into taking responsibility for whatever's gone on and taking it upon themselves and putting the guilt on their um, on their shoulders. Say, if I had just done better, if I just do X, Y, or Z, they wouldn't be doing this. It's totally my fault. And it is a way of surviving y- their childhood and being able to function from day to day. Tim Fletcher. I knew I had it. Okay, so the gentleman's name who I took this from, and I do have the video link in the video description below once we're done with this. But Dr. Tim Fletcher, and he just does a great job of explaining anything to do with trauma. I've watched so many of his videos. They may be a bit dry for some people, and like I said, a lot of them are pretty long, like at least an hour long, and some are part of multi-part series. But if you're really interested in getting the nuts and bolts of different aspects of trauma, I highly recommend that you check out his channel. You can get to his channel through the video link that I provided and look at everything that he's got out there. Crystal says, I thought all kids in my class had families like ours. Yeah. I mean, until we explore our world and really get to know other people and their families and how they interact, whatever's going on in your home, you have no context for it being any different. And I find that especially when you have, say, cultural norms and you grew up in a neighborhood, uh, whether it's from culture or whether it was from, a particular generation that raised their children a certain way, even if you looked outside, you'd see the other kids in your neighborhood were being treated just like you were. And so you think this is the norm. You don't think that this is odd at all. It might not feel good. It doesn't mean that you don't develop trauma from what happened, but you don't have any other context for thinking this is abnormal until and unless later on in life you actually understand what healthy relationships are like and what good, decent parenting should be and the things that can get left out. You know, I mean, you take some of the older generations and they may see nothing wrong with the way that they've raised their kids and the tools that they utilized. But I think that we've shown that consistency, showing up with your kids, being present, kindness, compassion is going to raise much healthier, well-adjusted kids than a totalitarian type, very authoritative parent who believes in corporal punishment, toe the line, do as I say. There's no room for that child to be an individual. And a lot of people of the older generations, this is how they were raised, and so that's how they raised their kids. Crystal says you learn how to survive in the environment you are in. Even if it's hard, you believe anything different would be worse than what you're already in, so you don't say anything. Yeah, that's, it's the devil you know, right? So the reality that you come home to every day, or that just you're in every day when you're at home, a lot of abusers, of course, are going to use threats. You're going to break up the family. I could go to jail. They could take you away, meaning the child. And as a kid, you don't know any different. And so you don't know that what that adult is saying is not true. Or even if it is true, that what's on the other side isn't better. And, it's unfortunate because I have heard stories where, people have been taken out of situations and then they've ended up in foster care, and their foster care situations have actually been worse than their home. And I said, I wish that I didn't say anything, or whoever did eventually get CPS involved. I just wish that it hadn't changed. I would have rather have grown up in that environment than the environment that I was placed in. And that's a whole nother, situation, um, in terms of foster care and giving kids good options for being able to deal with their trauma, to not be stuck in their situations, and to find a safe place to go. So let me close this out. So as I said, at its core, the differences between what a child is going to experience and what an adult is going to experience are very similar. You just have this complicating factor of when the child, the person suffering the trauma, is reliant upon this relationship in order to survive. As an adult, we have a better chance of dealing with it because we have more life experience. Now, it's not to say that everybody who is an adult is going to, once betrayal, once the betrayal occurs, that they're going to get out of the situation and cut off contact. Adults can use coping strategies such as we went through, of blindness, basically denial, minimizing the situation. You see this a lot with domestic violence type victims, or people who are, victims of financial abuse because they don't see a way out. Um, it's different when, say, you're married and the betrayal trauma is because your partner cheats on you and you can get a divorce. There are some people who stay in marriages because divorce really isn't financially an option for them because they don't think that they can survive on their own. Either they're not going to have enough resources to start back up again because of the splitting of finances, or they're financially dependent upon the betrayer for their, for their bills. And this could be particularly tough for women who have been out of the workforce, say raising the kids, and so they don't really have a resume. What have you done for the last 15 years? I've been at home raising my kids. And so getting anything more than a minimum wage job can be very difficult. So having the finances to actually support yourself. So that can also be a situation. Those situations are very similar to a child relying on their caregiver for their survival. When you're relying on your partner for finances, for being for taking care of the bills and buying the food and having the roof over your head. The types of reactions then that you can have in that type of situation be very similar to a child caregiver um, relationship as well. So that is about all I wanted to say on betrayal trauma in kids. I know it's not as full of a show as I would normally get into, but because we did cover most of this last Wednesday, if you didn't watch just our betrayal trauma, highly recommend you go watch that video. And then we've just delved into a little bit more specifics with betrayal trauma in kids, or as I said, this really can extrapolate to the situation where you're reliant on a partner for your survival, things like the food, shelter. And with that, I think we will end it. I have somebody saying that they cannot find something in the kitchen and they're trying to make dinner for their girlfriends. So I'm going to go help him. And hey, Misha, how are you doing? Glad to see you. Thanks for stopping in tonight. I will be on next Saturday at 3 p.m. I think we're going to do some trauma talk then. Look for the thumbnail. If I change the topic, you will see it. But that's probably what we're going to do on Saturday. If you guys have any recommendations, anything you want to talk about, please shoot me an email, survivingtogether@gmail.com, or go ahead and drop it in the comments. I would love to hear what you guys have to say. If you can comment after the show, it's really helpful for the algorithm. If you could hit the like button on your way out before you drop off today, that would be awesome as well. If you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing. You are going to need to hit that bell and all to get our notifications. Otherwise, it defaults to personalized, and I've never figured out what the personalized, how to set that up. So all is your best bet. So with that, remember, guys, you are worthy, you are valuable, and you are loved just the way you are for who you are. So hugs and love from me. We will see you Saturday at 3 p.m. Surviving together, never alone.
fire through the rain. We have walked through endless pain, but we stand, we rise again. Stronger now, we break the chain. Surviving together, hearts open wide, lifting each other through every tide. The past may have shaped us, but it won't define. Together we heal, together we shine. Every tear, every scar tells the story of who we are. Not just survivors, but warriors too. With love as our armor, we see this through. We see you, we hear you, and we believe in you. Surviving together, hearts open wide, lifting each other through every tide. The past may have shaped us, but it won't define. Together we heal, together we shine. We see you, we hear